Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the actual science of studying smarter. We're going to break down two incredibly powerful techniques that will literally change the way you learn and, more importantly, retain information. So let's just jump right in.
Let's be honest for a second. Are you completely tired of forgetting everything right after an exam? Because we've all been there, right? You put in hours of work, you take the test, and then a week later, poof, it's like the information just vanished from your brain. It's that incredibly frustrating cram and forget cycle. But there's actually a much better, highly actionable way to fix this.
Stop forgetting after exams, the high achiever's blueprint.
Look at this stark contrast between two very different approaches to learning. First up, we've got the old way, passive reading and cramming. I mean, this is what most of us were taught to do, right? Just reread notes again and again until our eyes glaze over. But honestly, it's a massive waste of effort. On the flip side, we have the achiever way. This relies on two specific, scientifically backed pillars, active recall and spaced repetition. Let's unpack exactly what these are and why they are total game changers.
Technique 1, active recall.
Basically, active recall is all about actually testing your brain instead of just passively rereading your notes over and over. Look, passive reading is literally the enemy of long-term retention. When you just look at words on a page, your brain gets tricked into thinking, oh yeah, I know this, just because it looks familiar. Active testing completely shatters that illusion by forcing your brain to do the heavy lifting of actually retrieving that information.
Now here's an absolutely crucial, kind of counterintuitive point to remember. When your brain struggles to remember information, it actually strengthens those memory connections. I really want you to completely reframe how you think about struggle when studying. We usually think, if studying feels hard, we must be doing it wrong. But that friction, that feeling of reaching into your mind and struggling to pull out a fact, is exactly what makes active recall so powerfully effective. That struggle is literally the sound of your memory connections getting stronger.
So how do we actually put this into practice? Well, the very second you finish studying a topic, you need to close the book. Seriously, physically shut it. Then ask yourself, what was the main idea? Force yourself to articulate that core concept purely from memory. Once you've got that main idea down, immediately move on to the mechanics. Ask yourself, how does this process work? Try to dig into the details without peeking at your notes. By simulating this active recall process, you're actively challenging your immediate understanding of the material right when it's super fresh. And finally, the ultimate test. Ask yourself, can I explain it without looking? Because if you can't explain the concept out loud or write it down without checking the textbook, well, your brain hasn't truly encoded it yet. It really is that simple. This self-testing is absolutely the cornerstone of the whole method.
Technique 2, spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition means revising information at smart time intervals instead of trying to cram everything into one day. Let's face it, cramming is exhausting, stressful, and highly ineffective because your brain is just going to dump all that data almost immediately after the test. Spaced repetition, on the other hand, works beautifully with your brain's natural rhythms to lock that information down permanently. So here is exactly how you pull it off. You study the material today, then you review it tomorrow. You review it again after 3 days, and then you do a final review after a week. What we're doing here is taking the abstract idea of studying and turning it into a highly concrete, scheduled system. It's targeted, it's deliberate, and it's highly structured. Now, why does this specific timeline work so well? Well, each revision tells your brain that the information is important, so it stays in your long-term memory. The cognitive mechanics happening here are just fascinating. When you let yourself almost forget something, and then you force yourself to remember it at these smart intervals, you are sending a literal biological signal to your brain that says, hey, this data keeps coming up in my environment. I need to save this to the hard drive.
The ultimate study combo, the synergy of methods.
So, instead of only reading notes, which, let's be real, we're never doing again, you want to do 3 things. Solve practice questions, use flashcards, and keep revising regularly. Things like flashcards and practice questions are the absolute perfect engines for this methodology. They naturally force you to use active recall, and you can easily schedule them using spaced repetition. Let's reinforce this master system just so it's crystal clear. Step 1. Use active recall to test yourself. Close the book, retrieve the info. Step 2. Use spaced repetition to review consistently over time. Spread that testing out over today, tomorrow, 3 days, and a week. This right here is where the magic happens. And here's why we're doing all of this. The payoff. If you use these two techniques consistently, you're going to learn faster, you'll remember way more, and you're going to feel so much more confident in exams. You totally eliminate the panic of cramming, and you walk in knowing that the information is securely locked in your brain.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to stop studying harder and finally let your brain study smarter? Try applying this exact framework to your very next study session. Test yourself, space it out, embrace that struggle, and just watch your retention skyrocket. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.